Let's get a check of the markets now. Tokyo stock prices closed modestly higher in what was a pretty cautious trading day. Gains in Apple's iPhone 5 linked shares did help to support the index today. For the latest details, let's go down to Chingli Tori, standing by at the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So Chingli, a bit of a quiet day today on the markets for Friday.
That's right, Ron. Trading was light today as investors remained cautious ahead of the weekend, but we did see some bargain hunting support the index after yesterday's steep falls. Now let's take a look at the exact closing prices in Tokyo markets this Friday. Both the Nikkei and the Topix slightly higher. The Nikkei up 0.3% at 9,110. The Topix also up around 0.3% at 756. Now risk appetite remained low today amidst concerns over slowing global economic growth, but we did see some iPhone-linked shares such as telecom operator KDDI gain on strong demand for the iPhone 5 released today. But China-linked shares such as Komatsu and Hitachi Construction fell today on concerns over slowing growth in China. And Japan Airlines ends the week below its initial subscription price on its third day of trade. The stock is now about 3% lower than its initial offer price. Now, pharmaceutical and railroad operators were amongst the gainers today. That's as traders bought domestic demand-led shares today, Ron.
All right, so Chingli, we've seen most major central banks like the ECB, the U.S. Fed, and the BOJ all making moves. What can we look for next week?
Now, with the Eurozone putting in place a bailout fund and bond buying program, focus will be on how countries in need make use of that lifeline. And in particular, the moves by Greece and Spain will be closely watched. For now, let's take a look at how currency markets are moving. The dollar-yen at 78.14 to 15. The euro-yen at 101.52 to 56. So the dollar is still trading in a tight range against the yen, pretty much unchanged today. Meanwhile, the euro is still under pressure from rising concerns over the Eurozone debt situation. Now, there is rising speculation that Greece may have to restructure its debt once more as the government struggles to secure the next bailout package. Now, in terms of major economic indicators due out next week, Ron, we do have quite a few. Investors will be watching out for the U.S. durable goods orders for August and the third estimate of the second quarter GDP. And within Japan, we have jobs data as well as industrial production that will be closely watched out for. So a busy week ahead, but for now, back to you, Ron.
Okay, Chingli, thanks so much for that.
Fashion retailer Uniqlo has more than 1,000 stores worldwide, from Fifth Avenue in New York to Pudong in Shanghai. Its founder hopes to make it the world's #1 retailer within the next decade. NHK World's Chingli Tor spoke with Tadashi Yanai about how he plans to achieve that goal.
For Yanai, dominating the Asian market is the key to Uniqlo's bid to become the biggest retailer in the world. That's despite a recent economic slowdown in China and other Asian countries.
We plan to open 1,000 stores in China and another 1,000 in the rest of Asia within the next 10 years. We're already seeing a power shift from Europe and the US to Asia. The age of Asia has no doubt arrived, and this trend will continue. This may not be so obvious in the short term, but in the medium to long term, we'll see a huge jump in Asian growth.
With labor costs rising in China, how will that affect Uniqlo's business model as a low-cost quality producer of fashion?
Even though labor costs are rising in China, production efficiency is still better there than in any other country. At the same time, China is a major consumer of goods. The standard of living is on the rise. Domestic demand is growing, and we want to be part of that market.
Yanai also confirmed plans to launch production in Myanmar. The nation is considered to be Asia's final frontier.
Myanmar is also a very good market. It's been under military rule. Made in Myanmar products used to invoke a very negative reaction and couldn't be sold, especially in the US and Europe. But now that Myanmar is on the road to democracy, I think we can start making our products there.
Bringing GU, Uniqlo's sister brand, into Asia is another strategy for dominating the region. The label is now only sold in Japan.
We also have plans to bring GU to Asia in the near future. The products are around half the price of Uniqlo's and considered affordable, even within Asia. They're basic and fashionable, but we want to refine the brand further. We believe it's suitable for the Asian market and will be well received by consumers.
And within the next decade, Yanai is determined to make Uniqlo the #1 global fashion retailer.
How confident do you think are you of achieving that goal?
It's not so much about having the confidence to achieve this goal or not, but rather we have to take up this challenge as a company. Many Japanese companies have lost that spirit of challenge. Regardless of the chance of success, our mission is to continue betting on the future, or there will be no future to speak of.
That was Tadashi Yanai, the CEO of Fast Retailing.
Their ethical awareness. All right, checking on the markets now. Tokyo stock prices losing ground this Friday as uncertainties over global economic growth weighed on investor sentiment. Some doubts were also cast on the likelihood of near-term stimulus measures in the United States. For the latest details, let's go now to Qingli Tor, who's standing by at the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So, Qingli, quite a change today in market sentiment.
That's right, Ron. Tokyo markets gave up all of yesterday's gains and more to end at just over a one-week low. Cautious trading ahead of the weekend also led to a broad-based sell-off for shares. Let's take a look at how Tokyo markets closed this Friday. The Nikkei is down 1.17% at 9,070 points, and the Topix down nearly 1% at 757. Now, growth-sensitive stocks, in particular steel makers, were down sharply today. JFE and Nippon Steel were dragged down by concerns over metal prices in the face of a slowing global economy. But utilities companies managed to buck the downward trend. That's on an investment ratings upgrade on expectations of high electricity prices later this year. Kansai Electric Power and Chubu Electric Power were amongst the gainers. Ron.
Okay, now, Qingli, one thing markets are waiting for is a key meeting that's to be held between German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Greek Prime Minister Antonis Samaras, later on today. What can we expect from that?
Well, Ron, German Chancellor Merkel has been keeping to her line that Greece must stick to its commitments, and that's been putting some concern as to how much leeway Greece will get for a deadline extension to its fiscal reforms, which of course is a criteria for getting access to rescue funds. Let's see how that's been moving the currency markets today. The dollar yen at 78.55 to 60, and the euro yen at 98.61 to 66. The dollar yen has been keeping to a tight range. Focus would be on the U.S. durable goods orders due later today. That's the orders for July. That would be taken as an indication as to the likelihood of further stimulus measures in the U.S. on the back of some mixed data in terms of housing and jobs. Now, for the euro yen, that's keeping to the 98 level as investors take a wait-and-see attitude ahead of the key Eurozone meetings due later today. Now, Ron, one thing for sure is that we can't be certain about the outcome of Greece until at least October. But before that, we'll have the progress report on its fiscal reforms due out in September, which will be closely watched out for, Ron.
All right, Qingli, thanks so much for that. Well, 20 years after China and South Korea established diplomatic relations, they aim to expand bilateral trade and economic cooperation. Beijing and Seoul normalized diplomatic ties on August 24th,